All righty, thanks again for joining. Once again, I'm Brad Carlberg on behalf of AMS, Board of Operational Government Meteorologists. We're here today. May is Mental Health Month, so we got a panel including myself, Connor Nelson, and Jen McNatt, and hopefully Andrei is able to join us. But we'll just go around, discuss some mental health issues that we've all dealt with that might resonate with you. Feel free to drop a question in the chat. We'll be certainly happy to answer that as we go through this next hour. So hopefully people find this beneficial. And those listening at home or later after this, because this is being recorded, if you have any questions for Connor, Jen, or myself, feel free to give us an email. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So why don't we get started? We'll go around, introduce ourselves, and if you have identify any mental health challenges you've specifically dealt with or witnessed, and then discuss strategies that you use to manage them. And Connor, if you don't mind going first, that'd be great.
Yeah. So hi, I am Connor Nelson. So I am a project scientist at UCAR in the CPAESS program. So you may be wondering, okay, why is someone from UCAR serving on the board of operational government meteorologists? And the answer is the work that I do directly supports operations in the R2O process. So my work specifically works with AOML, HRD, supporting hurricane operations. Prior to this position, I was here in Kansas City, up at the Central Region headquarters at the NWS Operations Proving Ground. So there I was working with forecasters, with the boots on the ground, trying to figure out how far can we push the leading edge or the cutting edge of forecasting capabilities. So that's sort of myself in a nutshell. As far as mental health challenges that I have particularly faced, so I suffer through both depression as well as high functioning anxiety. And that's been a very long process to even be able to publicly admit that. So it's been a journey over the last, I would say, 10 years of sort of really figuring out how mental health actually plays a role in my career and how do I advocate for people to seek help when needed. As far as other things that I've experienced, so I have definitely seen others in similar positions dealing with various aspects of mental health, particularly going through the master's PhD route and then getting out into operations and really seeing how other forecasters manage stress. There are some really, really good role models out there for work-life balance and understanding how to appropriately deal with various aspects of anxiety and depression.
Great, Connor. Thank you so much. Definitely not easy to admit that. There's still quite a bit of stigma with the mental health, like the depression, especially anxiety as well. So thank you for sharing that. So next we'll move to Jen, and let's hear what Jen has to say.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. And thank you, Connor, for sharing your story too. So I'm currently the Deputy Director for Southern Region in the National Weather Service, also Acting Director for a little while since January. I've been in the deputy role for about a year and a half. And before that was in the Southern Region ROC for about 10 years, and worked at 4 different WFOs before that, and then was in the Air Force before that as a meteorologist. So I think one thing that has really stuck out to me in my career as far as impacting my mental health has been shift work. I worked shifts in some form or fashion for about 20 years, just over 20 years. And I think no matter what stage of life that you're in, it has an impact on your mental health. You know, in the beginning of my career, shift work led to very much isolation and a feeling of loneliness, which definitely impacted my mental health. And then moving through my career, having kids, being married, you know, there's a lot of pressures put on you as a parent or as a spouse, and shift work doesn't help. So I know I reached a point in my career as a forecaster where I had to go on medication, antidepressants, because of the midnight shifts specifically. I became a different person when I worked mids, that a person that I didn't like, you know, couldn't sleep. And so, you know, if there's one message that I can say, it is that there is help. Shifts are not easy. And it could be different shifts for different people. Sometimes swing shifts are the worst shift for someone. But I saw my doctor and was able to get some help to get through midnight shifts a little bit better. So I would recommend that. And I will say that, so this week I'm in Silver Spring for a meeting on with the shift flexibility team. You know, we have a dedicated team that is looking at how we can mitigate some of the impacts of shift work on our employees, which I think is super important. And we have a lot of great initiatives that we're rolling out or that are coming soon. And I'm really excited to be a part of that team because it's something that I'm really passionate about. I will say, kind of in a similar vein too, I think on the burnout and work-life side, Connor talked about work-life balance, and that's something else that I'm really passionate about because it does have a huge impact on mental health. If you're out of balance in your work and life, or just in areas of life, then that leads to burnout, it leads to depression, anxiety. I know I feel that too if I'm out of balance. And so one of the things that I really think that's important is for us to take the time to reassess how we're doing kind of each week, and what areas of our life do we need to put a little more emphasis on for that week, so that we feel like we have a little bit better balance. It's not something that you ever master, the work-life balance. It's something that you have to just be cognizant about and deliberately think about each and every week. So those are my 2 things.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for sharing. And again, thank you for joining us today. I know you're very busy, so we appreciate you taking the time out for this. Introduce myself a little bit more. Again, my name is Brad Carlberg. I am a forecaster here at the National Weather Service in Columbia, South Carolina. I've been with the Weather Service for 4.5 years, a little bit more than that now. I started at the WFO in Pueblo, Colorado, and then I wanted to try something different. My wife wasn't too happy. My now wife, at the time we were not married yet, but she was not happy in that part of the country. So I was looking for a different position. So went to the Mid-Atlantic River Forecast Center in State College, Pennsylvania, and was there, and ended up being something that wasn't a right position for myself. So I got back into forecast office and was able to transfer here to the Columbia, South Carolina office, which is something that I'm very thankful for. Something I share with Connor is I also deal with depression. I was diagnosed back in 2005, so it's going on about 20 years. I probably had it before then too, but and that definitely plays a huge role in operations, especially with the shift work involved. It can be very difficult at times. In fact, last year when we made the move to State College, there was just a lot of big life events that happened. The move itself, which is huge, ended up finding out shortly after that my now wife was pregnant with our first child. And then And then we ended up getting married. We just had our 1-year anniversary a couple days ago, which all those things are happy things, right? But they compiled, and it was just a huge change. So many life-changing things in such a short amount of time. Depression really hit me last summer. Like Jen said, there are plenty of resources out there. I actually reached out to EAP. Unfortunately, where we live, there's a huge cell phone hole, so wasn't getting good reception. So then immediately I found a psychiatrist to talk to, and was able to get in, and that really helped me last year going through the bout. And for me, it comes in and out, so it's can be difficult. Like not last summer, the summer of 2021 was really difficult time for me. But that resource, the psychiatrist, going there every couple weeks was really huge. Helped me out a lot. Helped me realize, okay, this isn't the right position for me. Even, right away, knee-jerk reaction, which I didn't want to necessarily change right away, but after thinking, so I changed to the shift work, back to the more shift work here at the Columbia office. And there's plenty of challenges with that too, obviously. A lot of stuff Jen said resonates well with me as well. Difficult sometimes mid shifts. My wife can tell you I'm definitely a different person after, the 2, 3, or fourth one, just not getting the sleep that you need. And then, of course, we being operational, the best thing that works for me for dealing with depression is actually, I know this doesn't work for everybody, but just being alone, just not really doing anything, not taking care of any responsibilities. But that's obviously difficult to do with a family, as well as the nature of the work that we're in, because weather doesn't stop. So we can't just, okay, I'm going to take off work today, because then that affects so much other stuff. So when I have days off during the week and my wife's in the office and son's at daycare, I get those opportunities. But then on the flip side, when I work weekends, it kind of becomes difficult, because that's the prime time to spend with my wife and my son and do things. We were able to go on a little trip this weekend, but it can be difficult in that sense as well. But so what I do there is try to, when, like evenings, if I have the evenings off, mornings, I'll get up with the little guy and just spend as much time with him as I can. So I could go on and on. So I'll stop there, and we can go on to the next question. But that's a little bit about me and the mental health issues that I personally deal with. So yeah, I see Andrei's not on yet, so we'll move on to the next question, kind of similarly related, and we'll just go around again. We'll start with Connor. Are there any specific times or scenarios that affect your health in a negative or positive way? Sometimes there's positive things that happen, obviously, that you'd like to discuss with the group here today.
Yeah, definitely. So I find myself to become the most anxious and the most, I should say, mentally unhealthy, sort of in an unhealthy mental space, when there's just a lot of pressures coming from many different avenues. Basically, it amounts to a sensory overload, right? So there's just so many different sensory things going on. I've got a kid screaming, needing a cup of milk. At the same time, I'm trying to get this piece of code to work. And then I've got my wife who needs some help around the house. And then everything just piles up. When all of that stuff piles up, that's a moment where things just sort of break down, right? And this can have a similar analogy to those who are in operations. So you can imagine being on a shift of some sort, and, on any given day, things may be pretty okay. but you may have that 1 or 2 days where stuff hits the fan and everything's going wrong and you are just mentally overloaded. And those are the moments where I see mental health really, really creep in. And it's at those moments where your coping mechanisms really need to be in the forefront of your mind. So on the positive side, when I have moments like those, it is imperative for me to take a deep breath and take a step back. And mentally, what I have to do, this may not work for everybody, but I have to compartmentalize everything. And basically, even if I have to get a little sticky note and write it down, I prioritize everything. First task I need to get done is I need to get the kid a cup of milk. Next thing is I need to deal with whatever my wife needs. Next thing is I can deal with the piece of code that's not working because the code can sit there for a few minutes, right? So whether or not you do that mentally or you write it down on a sticky note or a scratch piece of paper, writing that down will really help you to get out of the overload mindset and sort of sequentially work through what you need to do. Now, you can't always do that. Sometimes you don't have the ability to write something down. Maybe you are out in the field doing a storm survey, for example, and you just don't have that ability to do that. And you're overwhelmed by the destruction that you are seeing doing a storm survey. And it's at that moment where you kind of need to figure out, can I have sort of, it's a little bit of a taboo word, but a safe space, right? So is there a spot that I can go to? Maybe it's even the passenger seat of a car where I can just sit down for a minute, close my eyes, and just get myself back rooted into a nice space. And then I can more logically separate the emotions from what the task or the job needs me to do. So I think, having those coping mechanisms, whatever it is that gets you through your day, whatever it is that allows you to discern the emotional, mental aspect versus your tasks, that is probably the most critical thing that I could suggest somebody doing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Connor. Those are some really good tips. I really like the writing down stuff, including, I like how you included stuff going on at home as well as work stuff. So that's when we work at home, which we all do from time to time. Yeah, those things creep in. It happens. I mean, there's nothing, and nobody's going to be upset that those things happen, of course. And so it's nice to prioritize. Yeah, get the kids some milk. That's got to take number one. Obviously, in that sense, the code can wait a little bit because kid's hungry, so you gotta feed the kid. So totally understandable, and I really like that, Connor. Thanks for those. As well as I like going into the car and just kind of separating yourself from the task at hand. That's really good. So thanks again, Connor. Jen, same thing for you. Any specific times, scenarios that affect your mental health, negative or positive way?
Yeah, so I'll definitely echo what Connor said about feeling that overwhelming feeling, right? Wherever those stressors are coming from. I'll add another kind of coping mechanism that I like to use, that I've really turned to like in the past 6 years, and that is exercise. For me, if I can schedule at least to like 4 times a week, an hour where I can go, I like group fitness where somebody else tells me what to do. All I can focus on is the workout for an hour. It really gives me a mental break, because I can't think about anything else. I'm just focused on getting through the hour alive. And so that's really important for my mental health, is making sure I have those times scheduled each week. And when I can't get those times scheduled, I noticed that it impacts me mentally. And I noticed that in my kids actually too. If I pick my now 14-year-old, especially up from school, and she didn't have PE that day or didn't have a chance to exercise, she's in a different place mentally than when I pick her up after she's been in dance for an hour and a half. And she struggles with a lot of anxiety too. And so I really notice how much that physical activity impacts her mental health. So that was kind of a takeaway for me, to make sure I focus on it, because then she focuses on it too. And that's a positive impact I can have on her. I will say another thing that I kind of struggle with in the last year and a half, especially in this new position, is imposter syndrome. And, being in a meeting, kind of looking around and feeling like you don't belong. And that leads to a lot of things too, right? Like you're afraid to maybe speak up. But I think a coping mechanism that I've tried to use for that is that network of support, of those people that you can turn to bounce ideas off of before you present them, to kind of give you that confidence. People that you trust are going to tell you the good and the bad, right? Like if you're headed down the wrong path, I want to know that too, because that impacts my confidence. So I think having a close group, trusted group of people that you can talk to is super important.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, that's also very, very good stuff. I like the fitness class that you go to, and I think that's what would have, for me personally, I think that's what would have to happen for me as well, having someone tell me what to do. Otherwise I would just get sidetracked, and I can put this off till later and not deal with it now and just get put to the side. But that's really really neat that that helps. And it also great that you notice that in your daughter as well, that if she doesn't get that physical exercise, that you notice it in her mental health. And I kind of notice that in our little one too, when he doesn't go to daycare, or if he's sick or whatever and doesn't have that interaction with kids. I don't know if you deal with this, Connor, your kids are in daycare yet. And just the physical activity that they have there versus at home, because we just have the one child, and it's night and day, especially after like Tuesday or Wednesday, definitely night and day, as far as he's a lot crankier if he's not at daycare, just because he's not getting that that exercise, that as much mental stimulation. That's not a dig against me or my wife. We just, we're not educated in educating children, and we only have so much energy to give, of course. So it's but we definitely notice it. So I'm glad you brought that up, that it's our kids are dealing with it as well, to an extent, obviously different ages, but for me, specific times, like I mentioned previously about the move, having, finding out the little one, that was one specific time. Other times, similar to Connor and Jen, I can feel stuff building up, just chaotic moments really, really get me. Like last night, we got back from vacation, went and picked up the dogs, and they pooped in the car, pooped in the house. Kid wanted to play with the poop and all this other stuff. So it was that got me in a pretty cranky mood. So those things are going to happen. And those are, for me, very difficult to prioritize. Thankfully, last night I was able to. I quickly thought, I didn't have time to write down, like Connor said, sometimes you don't. So I was like, okay, I got to take the dogs out for a walk to get them out of here in case they have to go again, which they did. And then had my wife handle the little guy to keep him away from the mess in the house, and quickly cleaned up what I could before we went out. And that helped. Even a little bit of in more of a physical sense, even though it wasn't a very long walk, but taking the walk with the dogs definitely helped me calm down, to kind of brought me back to um, got me grounded again, I guess would be the correct term, maybe. So things like that, of course, you can't plan for those. They happen. But when things on the horizon keep building up, I try to take the time I can just to lay on the couch, sit in the chair, throw on TV for a little while. Not the best physical response for someone, but it definitely helps me. I also notice the exercise part. I do try to take my dogs for a walk for a mile or 2 miles in the morning, right when I get up, and can definitely tell that helps my mental health right away in the morning. If I don't do that, and I wake up like I didn't sleep well last night, for instance, but after I took my dogs for a walk, I felt a lot better. So that's another way, definitely helps out with the mental health portion. So thank you for that. And I see Andrei is able to join us, so thanks for joining us, Andrei. Would you mind introducing yourself quickly, and then any mental health challenges you've specifically dealt with or witnessed?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Brad, for the introduction and also your your insights that you provided. Sorry that I was a little bit late. I thought I was on Google Meet as opposed to Zoom, but I'm here. So yes, my name is Andrei Evbuoma. I'm a meteorologist here at the National Weather Service in Albany. I began my career about 15 years ago. I started off in the private sector, where I worked in a variety of sectors: transportation, energy, agriculture, commodities, a little bit of broadcast journalism before transitioning to the National Weather Service. Got my bachelor's degree from Northern Illinois University, master's from Johns Hopkins University. And yeah, so I'm about a little bit over 3 years here in the National Weather Service, and just trying to keep chugging along. So not like some of you guys yet. I'll be getting married in July, so I'm almost there in terms of reaching that status. I'm excited about it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like mental health, for me, I haven't really like struggled with that, because one of the things I try to do, I know that, like, these type of careers are very demanding. They require a lot of your time, a lot of your focus. And I know like it's very easy to try to put our value and our identity in what we do, and in who we are, but one thing that I would advise people that's struggling with the work-life balance, that's struggling with mental health, is, to establish healthy boundaries. I know that it's a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of time to build these careers, but we can't put our identity in what we do. I know we take a lot of pride in our accomplishments, and we take a lot of pride in our careers, but we have to not put our value and our worth in what we do, because it's just what we do. It's not who we are. And I tell people that, I'm a meteorologist, whether in the private sector or now in the National Weather Service, that's just what I do. It's not who I am. And when you establish that, that, whatever happens, in my career, whatever happens in this field, that whoever I was before I got into this field, it is who I was. You begin to, acknowledge the fact that, whether or not you, connect with certain people, or certain people, don't connect with you, that it's okay that your value is not in that. Kind of going back to like, you know, you can date that back to like high school, you know, with peer pressure and things like that. I mean, you do not have to, you know, pressure yourself in trying to, you know, feel like you have to fit in every circles, fit in with everyone. That, you know, if it happens, wonderful. If it doesn't, that's fine too. So if you establish those healthy boundaries, that from a psychological standpoint will really help, because we cannot, you know, control the outside forces. When I go to work, you know, I can't put an expectation on people that they're going to reach whatever my expectation is. You know, I can't, you know, expect whether or not somebody wants to be my friend, or whether somebody wants to acknowledge me, or whether somebody wants to talk. So if you're putting your value in your career to the point where I am somebody based off of that, then you can be disappointed, and you could face, you know, a mental challenge, you know, because the way that things, you know, may yeah, you know, happen, you know, with people. You don't know what people are going through in their own life that you're working with, the demands of the job. Maybe you're having a good week in terms of your work. Maybe, you know, there's some things that you've messed up with one day, but whatever happens, you know, you just can't place your value on that. And know that, you know, your home and your core, your family, the people that's been with you all along in your life, your spouse, your significant other, that is your sanctuary. And that has to be the number one thing that you make sure that you're winning at. I don't have to win on the job. I don't have to win outside my four walls. But if I'm winning at home, that is where, you know, my support system, my support group is. And so for people that may be having these challenges with the work-life balance and you know, how to juggle all of that, is, again, you know, don't put the value in all these other things, because they're just things. Don't put value in money. Don't put value in, you know, your job, because they can come and go. You know, again, we can't control the outside forces outside of our four walls. You know, that's impossible. You know, everyone has their different backgrounds. You know, you did not raise them. They didn't come up the way that you might have come up. And so it's unfair to put an expectation on your job, you know, that may not be met. But if I have things in order at home, my relationships I have strengthened, and I got that going for me at home, then that helps. And just make sure that you're spending enough time at home, because I mean, the reality is that, again, with these type of jobs, you know, they're very demanding. So you have to be able to place limits on getting time away from work, you know, getting enough time to be with your family and to be with those that you know, that, you know, for sure, that without a doubt, they have your back, you know, and that will really like help, you know, outside of, you know, the, you know, spiritual end. You know, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer of God. I don't want to, you know, draw offense to anyone on here. I'm not sure anyone's religious affiliations, but I was born and raised in a church. So for me, you know, that foundation that I have in Christ, my identity in Christ, in addition to all the things that I just previously said, that also helps as well. That if you have, if you know who you are in Christ, that right there is, you know, everything, you know. And then that support structure that you have around your house, your family, your significant other, that right there, that's your core. And that's how you're able to, that's why I would advise for people, if you want to try to like address mental health, you know, because I have more of a control. I have more of, of a control in terms of my relationship with God. That's a choice that I have to make. I read the Bible, I pray. Those are choices I have to make, you know, making sure that you have, you know, your family, of course. I mean, people make mistakes even in your family, but if you know that you have those people that have your back and you strengthen those relationships, even when you know, you come down to a point in life where, you know, you're on hard times, maybe you're on the sick bed, the people that's going to be around you are those people, your family, your significant other. And if you don't build those relationships, if you don't have time to establish those relationships and strengthen those relationships, I think Warren Buffett said it the best. I mean, like, you can earn $1 billion and you can, you know, be on your deathbed, and if you have no one by your side on your deathbed, then you leave this world broke. So it's so important to have that structure going for yourself. Anybody that's struggling with mental health issues, that is important. Put value, you know, make sure, you know, you're putting value in your faith, putting value in your family, and then let everything else be in terms of, you know, your you know, where you're placing value, where you placing a price tag over things. And so that's all I have to share.
That's awesome. Thanks, Andrei. I really appreciate your input. Yeah, like setting boundaries is obviously huge, and something that I struggled with for a while personally, setting those boundaries, and like you said, having the support system at home, church, if you're on the religious side, those types of support systems are huge for mental health. So yeah, thank you for bringing those up. We hadn't discussed those yet, so I appreciate that. Also, congratulations on getting married coming up. That's fantastic news. So and again, thanks for joining us and being on the panel, Andrei. We really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem, anytime. And thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'll skip ahead to the next question here. We'll just keep going in the same order. We'll start with Connor. Have you been able to assist others in their mental health challenges in operational meteorology or otherwise?
Yeah, so definitely getting the courage to kind of share my own stories. When people suffer through usually really difficult mental health challenges, it can often feel very isolating. You feel alone, or you off in the distance know, yeah, I know other people have stress too, you know, but you sort of get into this isolation mode, and coupled that with depression, you then feel like nobody cares, right? So once you can break through that and you realize, you know, it's okay to be this way. So I'm going to share my story with people. Once you share your story with people, then people are like, oh yeah, I'm struggling through the same thing. And when you do that, not only are you building up relationships with each other in the office, as well as, you know, people in your life outside of the office, you know, talking about work-life balance, your story should not only be shared with one or the other, right? You should be yourself in both situations, whether you're in the office or out. And you should be able to freely share with people who you are and what you struggle with. And there's nothing wrong with struggling with something. And that's one of the ways in which I feel like I have been able to assist others, is basically coming down to earth and saying, look, you're not alone. And when you open up that door for that relationship, through that relationship, you can help people. So let's say if I open myself up, then John Smith down the road, hypothetical person, then opens up to me about their story. And in doing so, we've now built this network of trust and transparency. Through that network of trust and transparency, we can help each other out. So let's say if proverbial John Smith is having a rough day and he or she really, really needs some help because depression's hitting them hard today. They are feeling, down at every single turn. Now I can step in and sort of help lift them up as best as I can, or point them to resources for them to be able to do so. So let's say if they have yet to seek help through either psychiatry or a faith-based network or through their doctor, I can help them figure out where they should go to get that help. So you're not always going to be the one giving the help, but sometimes the best help you can give is directing them to the best resource. And so that's something that I think is a challenge. And I would challenge you all listening on this call to sort of weigh this out, is where is the line? And you need to do this for your own mental health as well. You need to draw a line and say, this is where I can help, and this is where I cannot help. And in the areas where you cannot help, build up enough resources that way you can help push others in the right direction. And this is going to be extremely helpful for, let's say, if you are working up the ladder track as a forecaster or in any other area of meteorology, and you become into a leadership position or a management position, you're going to have these tough conversations with employees. You're going to have an employee come to you at some point and say, yeah, I'm going through a divorce, or my father died and I cannot do the job that I know I could do. And you have to have that compassion and sympathy as a supervisor to look at the overall growth of your employees and say, at this point in time, yes, the job matters, but the person matters more. And I think those have been some areas where I have been able to help assist. So hopefully that summarizes it well.
Yeah, that sounds great, Connor. Those are some great approaches. I like to refer to it as a sphere of influence. Like I understand, and I understand my sphere of influence is not that large, but there are areas that we can point others to in those instances. And like you said, when you have depression, anxiety, and it hits, it can be very, very isolating. And that's difficult. And there might be someone sitting right next to you dealing with the same thing, but you don't know it because you haven't brought that up. So just talking about it, opening up and saying, hey, I deal with this. Here's my story, like you said. So that's really great stuff. And like Keith mentioned on the chat real quick, we have about 15 minutes left. Again, if you have any questions for us, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them. Send it over to Jen. How have you been able to assist others with mental health challenges that they may be dealing with?
Yeah, so I think echoing Connor, the more we talk about it, the more we can talk about it, right? So I think talking about our own challenges, asking people how they are, if I know someone has gone through a big event, whether that is at work or at home, just reaching out to check on somebody, I think can have a big impact. And you don't even need to ask them a question. You can just say, I know I know things are rough right now. I'm here if you need me. I think that has a big impact because I know it's had an impact on me, the people that have reached out. So that's one thing is keeping the conversation going and being open to conversation. But I think in order to keep it going, you have to approach people without judgment. And knowing that what impacts my mental health may not impact yours. What is trauma and a crisis for you may not be trauma and a crisis for me. So when someone comes to you and they're being vulnerable by talking about a situation or talking about their mental health, I think seeking to understand is important rather than judging. And so one thing, I've always been a fixer. I love to fix things, create a process. I love that kind of stuff, right? And so one of the things that I've had to really learn is that some people don't come to you and talk to you because they want you to fix it, right? They just want to talk. And so I think you can ask questions. Hey, somebody's coming to me with a problem. Do you need my help on this, or do you just need me to listen? And asking those kind of clarifying questions really helps me with how I interact with that person at that time. Am I just here to listen and show empathy, or am I listening in order to help you solve a problem, right? So I think that's important in these conversations. It's not just about having them, it's how we approach the conversations on mental health as well.
Right, exactly, Jen. Very, very good points. Like you said, what a problem for one person might be trivial to somebody else, and there's nothing worse when you're the problem, not the problem, but you're the person that's going through something and you want to talk to somebody about it. And those that deal with depression may have dealt with it. I would guess better than a 50% chance. You go to tell somebody, hey, depression is kicking in really bad right now. Oh, you're just sad, or oh, it's just the season, and they kind of brush it off. And there's nothing worse than that response for people that deal with depression, because it's like, okay, yeah, never mind. Obviously, I'm not worth your time. And that's kind of my attitude when I get those responses. Yeah, so there's great information with that. And then also, like you said, asking, I'm also kind of a fixer. Like someone brings a problem to me, it's like, okay, here's how I fix it. And they're not necessarily wanting that. They just want to, like you said, someone to listen to. So asking those questions ahead of time, very important, and builds that trust as well, as Connor alluded to earlier. So I'll move on to Andrei. How about you? Have you been able to assist others with any mental health challenges in operational meteorology or otherwise?
So no, I haven't had the opportunity to assist anybody with that. Nobody has come to me regarding that. But if I was, you're just looking at it from the non-manager point of view, if somebody is going through a mental health crisis or depression or something like that, I would, I would advise them the best way that I can, just kind of, letting them know that, they're not alone, that, other people are going through the same things. Just trying to point them into the right direction in terms of resources where they could also reach out to a mental health expert. They could, continue to, they can reach out to the supervisor, talk about it. But I would, definitely make sure that, they talk to somebody that they can really trust. Like if it's gonna be in an office setting, so that you don't have, your business all over the place. You don't want, to share something to somebody that you can't really trust, and then they're stepping all over your boundaries. and violating you and stuff like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you know, that person has built up, you know, the rapport and the relationship with somebody in the trust, where they can feel freely to open up and share. From the manager's point of view, I would, you know, if I'm a manager, I would be intentional. You know, Connor was talking about, like, you know, compassion and empathy and things like that. That's one of the things that you have to have as a manager. You have to be intentional. You have to have like that open door policy that, you know, people can freely like come in and, you know, open up to, you know, whatever it is. Because I mean, yeah, I mean, life, you know, we have lives outside of work, you know, and things happen. And so, yeah, that's something that I would establish, like in an office, that type of culture where people can, you know, feel free to come to me and talk about whatever. And again, if I don't have, you know, all the answers, I can try to, you know, point them into the right direction as to where they could get help. You know, if they, you know, do not have like a the spiritual end going or anything like that, where they can't go to like a spiritual leader or a pastor, you know, maybe have them, you know, consult like a close friend or a family member if nobody, again, in the office is available. But yeah, I will point them in the right direction.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. Also very, very good stuff. Just having somebody in the office, even those that, like yourself, that don't have the mental health challenges that some of us do. It's nice to have someone in the office that people can trust, go to, and they know that they're gonna, as yourself, lead them in the right direction, not be judgmental, not downplay what they're dealing with, anything like that. All that stuff could be very helpful. So we appreciate that, Andre. As for me, to, like Connor said, and Jen also mentioned, just opening up about what, you know, that I deal with depression, and that they, you know, they have an ally in that sense. But beyond that, again, it's already been mentioned, but just reaching out. If I see someone is physically having difficulties, I'll reach out and say, hey, is everything all right? Are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do to help? Or and not really, not push the issue, but just letting them know that I'm available. And I believe it's for some people it does help, because they've reached out and we've had a conversation, like a Google Meet, and just talked about what they're dealing with in their office, forecast wise, difficult with coworkers, whether it's leads or even MICs or their colleagues of the 5 through 12 meteorologists. So I believe just listening to that, and when they ask for advice, whether it's typically it's been life outside of operational meteorology, specifically at the Weather Service, I've been able to hopefully provide good assistance and advice with that. But so those are just some instances that come to mind, and I'll continue to do those things going in the future. So because I know it can be, in those that deal with the mental health challenges, it can be very difficult. There's still a lot of stigma out there with the mental health, and it's not something that you can necessarily see in somebody, because one thing a lot of people with depression have learned how to do is hide it very well. So they can look like the happiest person on the outside, but inside they could be just torn apart, and you would never know it unless they brought it up. So just because someone looks like they're like everything's great and rosy and everything like that, doesn't necessarily mean that it is. So that's something to keep in mind for those on the call as well. So just the book isn't, the cover isn't, I'm drawing a blank on the saying right now, but don't judge a book by its cover. There we go. So that's just something else to keep in mind going forward. So those are just my 2 cents on that last question. I had one more written down here, but we've just got a few minutes left. So I'll just go around and thank Connor, Jen, Andrei again for being here, being part of this panel. Obviously, mental health isn't the easiest thing to talk about, but the more we talk about it, the more we bring it out in the open. I think it will get easier and easier. So we really appreciate you joining us today. And I don't see any questions in the chat, so we can end this a little bit early. So thank you again. Thanks for everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate the attendance, and hopefully we're able to take something away from this today.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Really appreciate everyone's insights.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.